Being a lighthouse keeper is a lonely business, especially when you are located on an island with no other people around besides your colleagues. There are only grass plains and an endless grey sea. There is nowhere to go. What then, if all lighthouse keepers suddenly disappeared? Hello, I'm Nemo, and welcome to episode 13 of Certainly Strange. Another long story for you today. It is probably one of the most famous cases of people going missing without ever being found. And I can argue that it is probably the strangest of all of them. And yeah, I think with that, I hope I have sparked your interest. Without any further ado, let's get into the story. The year was 1900. On the highest point of Eilean Moor stands a lighthouse, and nothing more besides a tiny stone chapel. Eilean Moor is the largest of the Flennan Isles, a group of islands off the coast of Scotland. The lighthouse is brand new. The construction of the lighthouse had only finished 1 year prior in 1899, with the purpose to guide ships away from the strong tides and hazardous rocks that surround the Flennan Isles. It became officially operational on the 8th of December 1899 and was manned by 3 lighthouse keepers, Thomas Marshall, James Ducat and Donald MacArthur. Almost exactly 1 year later, on December the 15th, 1900, a steamer called the Arcter reports that the lighthouse was not functioning, despite treacherous weather. They report this to the authorities, and on the 26th of December, the steamer Hesperus, that brought the lighthouse keeper their supplies every 2 weeks, went out to investigate. The man that was meant to relieve one of the men, named Joseph Moore, was the first who went ashore. That day, as on other relief days, we came to anchorage under the Flennan Isles, and not seeing the lighthouse flag flying, we thought that they did not perceive us coming. The steamer horn was sounded several times, still no reply. At last, Captain Harvey deemed it prudent to lower a boat and land a man if it was possible. I was the first to land, leaving Mr. McCormick and his men in the boat till I found return from the lighthouse. I went up, and on coming to the entrance gate, I found it closed. I made for the entrance door leading to the kitchen and storeroom, and found it also closed, and a door inside that, but the kitchen door itself was open. On entering the kitchen, I looked at the fireplace and saw that the fire was not lighted for some days. I then entered the rooms in succession, found the beds empty just as they left them in the early morning. I did not take time to search further, for I only too well knew something serious had occurred. When Moore returned to the ship, some other men joined him to search the entire place again. Everything seemed in order. The lighthouse lamp had been cleaned, the fountain was full, the blinds were on the window, the ropes were in their respective places. The following day they searched the island for any sign of the vanished lighthouse keepers, but they found nothing. They did find that an old box, meant to hold West Landing mooring ropes and tackle, was gone. Some of the ropes that had been in the box were found strewn on the rocks, making the men assume that the old box had washed away. Iron railings and a handrail had also been found broken. Now, there is nothing to give us an indication that it was there that the poor men lost their lives, only that Mr. Marshall has his sea boots on and his oilskins. Also Mr. Ducat has his sea boots on. He had no oilskin, only an old waterproof coat, and that one was also gone. Donald MacArthur left his coat behind, which shows, as far as I know, that he went out only in his shirt. Some articles about the disappearance of the lighthouse keepers say that Moore also found that the kitchen table contained plates of meat, potatoes and pickles, and that the clock had stopped, and that there was an overthrown chair in the kitchen. But these things cannot be found in the original report that was written up about that day. The idea that there was half-eaten food in an overturned chair actually originated from a poem, published in 1912 by W. W. Gibson, and seems just to be a creative invention. One thing is true, however. A telegram sent by the captain of the Hesperus on the 26th of December does report that all the clocks had indeed strangely stopped working. A dreadful accident had happened at Flannels. The 3 keepers, Ducat, Marshall and the Occasional, have disappeared from the island. On our arrival there this afternoon, no sign of life was to be seen on the island. Firing a rocket, but as no response was made, managed to land more, who went up to the station but found no keepers there. The clocks were stopped and other signs indicated that the accident must have happened about a week ago. Oh, poor fellows, they must have blown over the cliffs or drowned trying to secure a crane or something like that. Something else that has been heavily repeated in articles about this mystery are the supposed lost logbook entries made by Thomas Marshall. December 12th. Gale, north by northwest. Sea lashed to fury, storm-bound. 9 p.m. Never seen such a storm. Ducat irritable. 12 p.m. Storm still raging. Wind steady, storm-bound. Cannot go out. Ship passed sounding foghorn. Could see lights of cabins. Ducat quiet. MacArthur crying. December 13. Storm continued through the night. Wind shifted west by north. Ducat quiet. MacArthur praying. Grey daylight. Me, Ducat, and MacArthur prayed. December 15. 1 p.m. Storm ended. Sea calm. God is over all. However, the Northern Lighthouse Board stated in 2014 that the actual logbook has been lost. It is believed that the logbook has been lost already since the inquest in 1901. Arthur Mike Dash did manage to track down where the so often repeated "God is over all" logbook entries originated. He found that these entries were from a writer called Ernest Fellon back in 1929, who wrote the fake logbook entries for a magazine called True Strange Stories. That these logbook entries about a storm are indeed fake checks out with all other logs made in the area at that time. All these logs report calm weather and seas over the 3 days where the Lighthouse logbook recorded a storm that could eventually even bring weathered lighthouse keepers to tears. This does, however, not explain one thing. A lifebuoy that was lashed 110 feet above sea level, that is around 34 meters high, had disappeared. Further investigation found that the ropes holding the buoy had not been touched by human hands, and so the lifebuoy must have been ripped away by an enormous wave. Waves that could only occur during a storm. The disappearance of the 3 lighthouse keepers did attract much attention, especially since the people of the Isle of Lewis associated the Flannan Isles with strange supernatural occurrences. Shepherds used the islands to graze their sheep, but they refused to stay there after dark, believing that the isles were haunted by ghosts or inhabited by small folk called pygmies. It is a popular theory that the pygmies turned the 3 lighthouse keepers into birds. It is said that the moment Moore entered the lighthouse residence, 3 black birds were seen flying away. The legend of the pygmies is a real one, and it is ancient. The people of the Isle of Lewis do still refer to Eilean Moor as the Isle of Little Men. Others suggest that the men were kidnapped by aliens. The mystery of what happened to the lighthouse keepers of the Flannan Isles even featured in an episode of Doctor Who back in 1977 called Horror of Fang Rock, where the disappearance was blamed on a shape-shifting alien. Another theory suggests that the men killed each other in a fight, having been driven mad by their isolation, or that the men left the island together to start a new existence. The Northern Lighthouse Board did certainly not believe that what happened to the 3 lighthouse keepers was the result of something supernatural. Northern Lighthouse Bond Superintendent Robert Muirhead conducted his own research to find out what had happened to the 3 men, who were his friends. The men left on the island made a thorough search in the first place of the station and found that the last entry on the slate had been made by Mr. Ducat, the principal keeper of the morning of Saturday the 15th of December. The light was trimmed, the oil fountains and canteens were filled, and the lens and the machinery cleaned, which proved that the work of the 15th had been completed. The pots and pans had been cleaned and the kitchen tidied up, which showed that the man who had been acting as cook had completed his work. These findings proved that the man had disappeared on the afternoon of December the 15th, as the steamer Arcter reported not seeing the lighthouse light during the night of the 15th to the 16th of December. Muirhead joined Moore and the other men on the island on the 26th of December. In his report to the Northern Lighthouse Board, he repeats what Moore had already noted, all that had been broken and all that had been left untouched. He also adds that a large block of stone weighing according to him about 1,000 kilos had been dislodged from its position. I am of opinion that the most likely explanation of the disappearance of the men is that they had all gone down on the afternoon of Saturday, 15th of December, to the proximity of the West Landing to secure the box with the mooring ropes, etc., and that an unexpected large wave had come up on the island, and that they were swept away with resistless force. I have considered and discussed the possibility of the men being blown away by the wind, but as the wind was westerly, I am of the opinion, notwithstanding its great force, that the more probable explanation is that they have been washed away, as, had the wind caught them, it would have, from its direction, have blown them up the island. Muirhead concluded his report with words of sorrow for his lost colleagues and friends. I was with the keepers for more than a month during the summer of 1899, when everyone worked hard to secure the early lighting of the station before winter, and working along with them, I appreciated the manner in which they performed their work. I visited Flennon Islands when the relief was made so lately as the 7th of December, and have the melancholy recollection that I was the last person to shake hands with them and bid them adieu. Up to this day, the mystery of the vanishing lighthouse keepers remains unsolved, and whatever theory that you believe in, we can all conclude that it is certainly strange. Now, okay, that was the case of the missing lighthouse keepers of the Flennon Isles. Now, this case creeps me out a bit, I must admit. There are 3 men on an otherwise completely abandoned island, and from one moment to the next they just completely vanish without a trace. I think the most popular theory of what happened to them is that one of the men got in trouble because of the weather, because of the wind or the waves or something, and that the others ran out to help him, which would explain why one of them was not wearing his coat, and that they all were pulled into the sea and drowned. But you think that there'd be at least some trace of that, right? Some evidence of where a man might have slipped or fallen down, or like a dead body maybe washing up. But there was absolutely nothing. And I must also add that I absolutely lost my mind when I read the theory about the aliens. I had the same thing when I was researching Spring-Heeled Jack, where people claimed that he was an alien with anti-gravity powers or something, and I actually screamed at my computer when I read the alien theory. It's just so like, okay, I believe we're not alone in the universe. But it's just so frustrating that whenever there's like one unsolved case or mystery, people are just immediately like, yes, it must have been aliens. Oh, and then you have the supernatural things. Like, okay, the pygmies, that's like folklore, like Scottish folklore. I do understand that people are a bit, how do you call it, superstitious about it. But of course, I don't really believe it. I do agree with the idea that they probably have been washed away, seeing that the lifebuoy had been washed away by a great wave, apparently, even though it was like 30-something meters up in the air. You also have the railing that was broken. You also had the box of ropes that had been washed away, and the ropes were scattered on the rocks. And also the huge rock Muir Head talks about of like 1,000 kilos that had been washed away or moved or something. And well, it all points to that there were like huge waves breaking things and such. I do believe that they could have been washed away by waves. But it is strange because you also have the logbooks of other locations in the same area who all stated that the weather was calm, the seas were calm. So where did those waves come from? If it would have been a very local storm or something. I must admit, I don't know a lot about waves and the sea and how all of that works, but I do believe that for very high waves you do need quite a bit of wind. And the fact that no other logbooks recorded that is, well, it's strange. It is certainly strange. And that's why we call the podcast Certainly Strange. What a surprise. But yes, I would love to hear your opinions about it, about this strange, famous case of missing lighthouse keepers. You can always contact me or message me on social media. Both the website and my social media are called Dr. Nemo's Cabinet of Curiosities. And thank you for listening to this episode of Certainly Strange, a podcast about the unexplainable. Everything about the podcast and my other projects can be found on my website called drnemoscabinetofcuriosities.com. And there you can also find the transcript of the episode and the sources that I used in my research. And once again, thanks for listening.